different room, different angles. Okay. I just finished up a game of Bullfrog Goldfield. This is my first look at the game ever. It's a new game, so I probably won't get back to it for a few years. Yeah, that's just the way I tend to play. I got too many games. All of which have to be videoed. I'll probably end up playing it with opposed at some point. But, well, so after playing it, come up with, I'm not absolutely ecstatic about it. It's not that it's a bad game. It certainly isn't. It's just, like some others, I kind of wonder who they're targeting. It's not me, but that's okay. I knew it wasn't me when I bought it. I might have some interest in it anyhow. But, you know, what excited me was the, let's combine Silverton and XX's stock type thing. You know, it doesn't have to be exactly, but sort of the idea of stock trading and dealing. Well, I knew before I bought it there were only 3 shares per company, and that it was not going to be the kind of powerful, takeover type deals that go on in an XX game. It's possible to take to do an unwanted takeover because people will generally leave 1 share holding a company for a long time, and if you have the stockbroker, you can do it if you have the cash on hand. But it's more that, you know, in the Euro type format that it sort of feels like this game has, or maybe more fairly in a lot of ways that kind of cut back winsome type game. Well, that still excites me because I like those winsome games. At least I think I do. I'm not convinced yet one way or the other, actually. But they interest me a great deal. I feel like there's something very, very intriguing behind them. But with this one, it's got a lot of luck in it. A lot of luck. Which neither XX nor those winsome games, nor, to be honest with you, even Silverton with all its die rolling and everything, really has. And what I'm talking about here is somebody was crushed in this game because 2 of their companies went down just due to these deep mining chits right on the first draw of the deep mining chits. I understand the simulation aspect of that very well, and I kind of applaud that, except that the rest of the game really isn't a simulation. I'm not saying it's terribly off base. I don't think it is. It's just that it gives this impression of not being a simulation type game, and it plays without the kind of detailed decisions. You know, you're picking a roll card like you would in a Euro. You're choosing, actions. It's not like you're running a company that's going to be laying track, that's going to be mining, that's going to be doing this, that, and the other, all of them. You're playing someone who has a limited amount of options in there. Okay, so that kind of mix, and I've complained about games before for being in this, and I should complain about ones I like too, because honestly I'm not sure, some things that I like, I'm not sure who they're targeting. Games like Tito, for example, that almost no one else likes. But when I do see something that disappoints me a bit, I tend to look more into that. Hey, who is this for? Is there someone who this is really targeted at? And I don't think it's targeted at the Eurogamer. The Eurogamer usually doesn't want this much luck, especially at the end of the game. You know, it's sort of like the whole game. You can do very well and set yourself up perfectly fine and just be crushed by an end-of-game luck situation. Middle of the game, not so much. You're able to make your planning and decisions there. The tiles there affect you a little bit, but not a lot. And that's the only luck in the game right there. And it comes out huge right at the end. Will your company survive? It's not quite as bad as I feared it was, but it did appear to be enough to drive a player who I think was in the running way out, and or maybe kind of at the edge of the running way out. Another aspect is something I brought up at the wrap. The fact that there aren't multiple options, that really there's a symbiosis between the railway and the mine. And if you build a mine, if you just buy a mine on your own, as we saw with the Silver Peak mines, the little red guy, you can't survive. You know, the only way you can survive with a mine on its own is to entice a railway into it. Okay, so having a mine without a railway near it that you own is probably a recipe for disaster. In this game, people tried to run railroads as the primary business that they were going to make money off of. Understanding they weren't going to make the quick money off of it, but that they could maybe, by owning the railways and developing them large enough, make the points at the end of the game. I don't think that's possible. So I think the only way for your railway to work is to be working with your mine and bonusing your mine. And it's this weird, it's not really a symbiotic relationship, it's a parasitic one, where the mine needs the railway needs the mines, sort of, but it can't make money off them. The mines, you buy your railway in order to make your mine better. And you can't play the way that I was playing, where somebody wanted to be just a railway man and only build track to the mines. Now, of course, you can't do that in Silverton either, really. I guess you could try to cut deals, but you can't control enough of the railway to just be a railway person. And that's fine. It's just kind of disturbing here because it wasn't clear on the first sit down. And I would say, when you sit down, make sure you're linking your railway to your mine. You're helping yourself. Because otherwise, what you're doing is you may be boosting along that little track, you may be boosting your railway's stock value tremendously, but it means doinkus. I mean, it really does, because you're not going to be able to pay out. And once you stop being able to lay track, your railway just goes into decline and starts dropping back, because you have all these bonds issued, and they're preventing you from ever issuing money to yourself. They're preventing you from paying dividends, which would push the value up, and instead actually pushing the value down all the time. And other people are going to move into the areas that you claimed early. You can shoot your value way up, but it's going to go down eventually once people start sharing into it. So the way I see it, the game rules, in some ways they're very hideous. They're not well written. I'll go into the components in a moment, but the rules and then this very, very busy player aid card, which make it a little bigger, would please me a lot more if they made this link clear. The way they express it, they make it sound like you have different viable choices and you can kind of use either. And what we saw was the people who concentrated only on mines, well, the people building the railways had to have some kind of purpose. They have to hook up a mine to even make an income at all. So, and that makes sense. But they end up in a position where they're just feeding the mine owner, essentially. The mine is doing great, the railway not so much. We actually saw one of the top players picked up a railway very late, or picked one up early but didn't pay attention to it till late in the game. That way he could take value away from other railway owners. It didn't really hurt. It put him in about, his railway was kind of slow, but it put him in kind of a position of contention with the other railways in the long run, when you can finally make money on the railways. Of course, it gave him less money for buying back bonds. So in some ways, His railway actually had to stay to the plains. It didn't go blasting through mountains and stuff like that as much. But it seems clear to me that the railway is not a viable option on its own. And because of that, the mine's not a viable option on its own. So you have the Silverton type experience there where you must be both. Okay, fine. But again, I wish the rules went into it. So having these two things working together certainly isn't a problem in and of itself. But the problem that I was getting at has to do with the luck factor for the Eurogamer and not enough simulation value for the non-Eurogamer who might be interested in a rail-like game that doesn't really involve, say something as heavy as an XX or something. Well, I actually found this much more difficult to play and to make, to keep track of things than XX. Some of it may have been my table color, but I found that the components actually blended in, the colors especially, of these mining certificates. It became very difficult to tell which one was which. The fact that this is gray is perfectly reasonable, but then this is green, and they don't look terribly different. They've got a different border. This is red, I can live with that. Okay, this is yellow, and if you put them next to each other, yellow and orange look kind of different, but if they're separated on the table, it's much harder to figure. And then we got a third one of these kind of gray tone ones, and this one's blue. Got blue, green, and black, and you can, or gray, and you can see the difference. But when they're spread out, it's a lot harder, and I got that confusion a number of times with the same color railways and little wooden tokens. I also got confused with them. Yeah, they're different shapes, but I see more of the color than the shape. It's a blob on the thing. I move it forward. Oh shit, I moved the wrong guy. Had a number of situations where the component confusion of keeping track of the two things on the one track was an issue. I'm sure if you got familiar with the game and played it a good deal, you would never make that kind of mistake. You'd be alerted to it beforehand. In fact, mine went down significantly as I went on. But yeah, it's... So let's look at how the XX type player, or maybe the Winsome game player looks. Well, again, like the Euro player, maybe even more so, there's way too much luck for their usual game. And, could this be trying to target, say, the Crayon Rails type player who's used to that luck, but maybe not this much? Most Crayon Rails games don't have that. Well, again, it's a lot of luck, and the play of the game is of a very different nature. It's much more of a heavy Euro or one of the Winsome type, which I considered kind of stripped down XX, but they're not. They're very different mechanics, but they seem lighter in terms of the actual weight of the rules. So it's kind of carving out its own territory, and it's a territory that I don't think there's going to be a lot of desire to be in. I don't think this is going to be any groundbreaking game that makes some whole new genre of games that require lots and lots of thought to be decided in the end by a tile draw. I don't think many people want that. I don't mind it terribly. Certainly only the players who were well focused on the mines took that advantage and took that route, had any chance at all, no matter what the draws were. This wasn't something that just knocks you out of the game if it happens. and just completely bonuses the person who saves their mining companies. The mining companies that mattered, it was the money that you bring in early. Just like in a lot of games, you want to make the money early. Alright, well, that's enough of talking about this. Now, oddly enough, I'm going to go to the components, and they're very good. Although there's a bit of warp. I mean, I bought this new, and it's already... These are reacting. Now, there's not a lot of humidity in here. I don't live with a lot of humidity. The board. These cards are fine. They're serviceable. You know, they're just placeholders, basically, so I don't really care what's going to happen with them. The tiles, stock tiles, very pretty, but again, the coloring issue on the actual company charters, if you wish, are kind of annoying to me. Gotta try to figure what goes where. The insert is a pain in the butt. As soon as you punch the counters, not everything's going to fit. And I'm considering whether to get rid of it, which I would certainly do if I had no thoughts whatsoever towards selling a game. I am kind of actually considering it here, because I just don't see what's so exciting about this one. I do like the idea of this collaboration of the mines. Yeah, this synergy between the mines and the railroads. And I think that's really an exciting factor. And I think Silverton misses it because, again, you can't just be one or the other. And I was kind of hoping this would allow that. It doesn't. And it also doesn't provide the same kind of interesting strategies in terms of the choices that it gives. I don't feel like there really are that many. You're trying to build your own companies. You're trying to build them up. You're trying to harass other people's. There's not a lot of huge decisions as to, you know, which direction to go or what stocks to buy. And actually, once you choose your mine, the map kind of insists that you choose certain railroads, or vice versa. If you choose a railroad, the map insists that you choose certain mines because you can only work with your own stuff. These, you know, I don't know what to do with them. This all just doesn't fit very well together. So, you know, there's kind of a noble attempt to this one. I thought it was a really cool idea, but on having played it, I'm not, you know, totally disheartened. It's something that I'd look forward to pulling out and fiddling with again, maybe. But it's just, it's not going to catch me the way, say, 1830 did. Yeah, I don't know. When it came out. And I wouldn't expect that. But I've seen XX games that have thrilled me a good deal more than this. And then things like Chicago Express or Steam that really made me think, yeah, that's a really good game. I can see a lot of people liking this. This one, I'm not so sure I do. I can see a lot of people being very disgusted with the luck factor. There's a lot of thinking that may seem like a waste in the end if it just boils away. I remember some other things that I kind of vaguely grumped about. It certainly requires paying a lot of attention, not so much to what other people are doing, although that can influence your strategy. You know, when the buildings are going out, hey, I better get some. But more along the lines of making sure that you have the right shares, you know, that you're paying attention to the right token, whatever. that kind of attention isn't pleasing, and there's certain color choices, etc., that made that a worse situation. Anyway, overall, I've got very mixed feelings about it. I certainly wish I hadn't picked it up at new price. I don't think it's going to be a big superstar game in the end. And I've got to start learning to only buy used stuff. But it looked so cool, and I love the idea so much. I really do. And something like Silverton is so big and long. This isn't a short game though either. It's not huge. It's not the size of a big Silverton game, although you can play short Silverton games. But it is probably the size of a smaller XX game, or some of those Winsome games that are maybe on the longer side. It feels like maybe 4 hours or so easily. So maybe more than that. It took me playing solitaire the whole really about a whole day, solid through, and that's I can usually get something for at least significant, but the camera gets in the way, so I don't know. Anyway, I'm just babbling for no reason because I'm overtired. I'm gonna say goodnight and hopefully have something more interesting next time.